Welcome to the Association of Applied and Therapeutic Humor podcast, Laughbox. We have multiple hosts and multiple guests and multiple ways to think out of the box using humor.
Laughbox is a production of the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. Visit us online at www.aath.org. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Music by Gary Rubio. For more information, www.garyrubiomusic.com.
Join us for episode 88 with Jim Bob Williams, Katie B., and Naomi Shafer, the Executive Director of Clowns Without Borders. Yay!
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Laughbox. I'm Jim Bob Williams, and my co-host is Katie B.
Hi!
We're here for the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. We're a group of people who explore how humor helps in all kinds of different situations. And sometimes the situations can be pretty grim, but you can find laughter there. You can find joy there. And there's probably nobody in the world better to talk about finding joy in tough places than Naomi Shafer. Naomi Shafer is the Executive Director of Clowns Without Borders.
So I started clowning as a child. I grew up in Vermont. I took classes at the New England Youth Theater, and in part, I really wanted to be on stage to express myself, but I did not want to speak. I felt very self-conscious about speaking. I actually still do. Yikes, here we are in a podcast. And being in clown, this place of making something from nothing. I also remember seeing clowns perform and having this moment of feeling invited in to someone else's imagination. And so that really stuck with me. And I spent a lot of time not clowning, doing other things. I ended up at Clowns Without Borders because I went to Beslan, Russia in 2015. And Beslan is a site where most people know about Beslan because there was a hostage situation at a school in Beslan, and I was invited to be there as a clown and as an art teacher, and it was so just wonderful and profound to be in this place that is a site of tragedy, but also to see that that's not the whole story, and that was a moment of really seeing, even when the news or a political situation or kind of the history of a place becomes defined by one, really horrifying, but like one moment we lose the greater opportunity for how is everyone else growing up. And when I got back from Russia in 2015 is when I started looking for other clown opportunities, and that's when I saw and learned about Clowns Without Borders. That's actually when I learned about Clowns Without Borders.
So this amazing background you have in this childhood of dreams and this travel to Russia took you to Clowns Without Borders. What is Clowns Without Borders?
So Clowns Without Borders defends the right to play. We work under the UN Declaration of the Rights of the Child, which include that children have the right to play, and that is children everywhere, anywhere, all the time, anytime. And so what we do is we are professional clowns and circus performers who perform in refugee camps, conflict zones, and sites of natural disaster. We often say communities in crisis, and if a community reaches out, a community can self-identify as wanting the clowns to come, and that's actually how we started. So part of our origin is based in the wisdom of children, and children saying we want this. And Clowns Without Borders was founded by Tortel Poltrona, who's a clown in Spain, and he is sort of the person who founded Clowns Without Borders. He is the clown who said, let's do this. But if we back up, in 1993 was the Serbo-Croatian War, and there were a group of children in Spain and also in refugee camps in Croatia who were pen pals, and they were writing back and forth. And the children in the refugee camp said, we're okay. We feel safe now, but we miss laughter.
Mm.
And the kids in Spain knew that Tortel lived in their town. They were like, well, we have a clown in our town. We like to see him perform. Oh, we should have him go and perform in these refugee camps. And in that magical way of kids, they just said exactly what they thought. They said to Tortel,
Yep.
you should go do this. And he did. And that was the seed. That was the seed of Clowns Without Borders, and that is the heart of what we do, which is, I really think, the heart of what clowning is about, which is listening. And so listening and being invited are really core pieces of what we do. And listening and being invited, looking for a game, looking for an opportunity to play, but also with this sense that I think really great clowning is not about the performer and is about the audience. So I started volunteering with Clowns Without Borders in 2015, and at the time the whole organization was volunteer run, and Molly Rose Levine was running programs, was the director of programs, and I became the executive director, I believe, in 2019.
Okay, so you became executive director just in time for the pandemic.
I think what's at the core of Clowns Without Borders is this piece of being seen, of seeing each other and being seen, and finding eye contact. And a lot of times what happens after the show, which is in many moments the most important part of the interactions we have, is the artists and the audience introduce themselves and say each other's names. And there's this beautiful story from the Turkey and Syrian border, and Caitlin Kaufman talks about this experience of performing in refugee camps. And throughout the performance, she had said her name, her clown name, and sort of yelled it. And at the end of the show, children came up to her and would say their name. And then they would stand and yell the names. And each kid would kind of go around and have this moment, this call and response of yelling their name and having the whole group yell their name back. And that piece of, again, of being seen, of being remembered. In rural Nicaragua, we had a kid run up and say, "You came. You're the clowns who came." And even last week, the artists were in Mexico, primarily performing for women and girls who've survived human trafficking. And at the end of one of the shows, the kids are asking the questions of artists, all looking for connection, sort of, "Oh, did you study ballet? I once studied ballet. What's your name? This is my name. What's your favorite color? Here's my favorite color." And this desire to be known and to be seen is so universal and so incredibly important, because I think we do a huge disservice to many communities and many cultures by only learning about them sort of by facts of displacement or facts of trauma, and not looking forward, not having that thing that's like, wait, how do you celebrate? Oh, what makes you laugh?
These are so beautiful. These points you're making are so beautiful. And Naomi, I have to return to your statement earlier. Why is play a universal right?
Play is a universal right for two reasons. And to sort of get on my soapbox for a moment. Oh, did you see? I sat up straighter, and now I'm like, no.
I'm with you.
Play is important for two major reasons. One is play is an essential part of childhood and human development. Children learn through play. If you have a child or grandchild in the school system, you hear a lot about play-based learning, play-based experience. And if you've seen a child, you will see them deep in this world of play. And so play is really how children learn and organize themselves. It's a place for both imagination and being in the what if, and also how they organize what is. It's that moment of you see children playing out scenarios that have maybe just happened. They will play out with stuffed animals their bedtime routine, or in games, if you think of play as sports and organized games, it's how humans learn cooperation, collaboration, competition, frustration, all of these major pieces, the excitement, disappointment, something is hard. And and so play connects so much to education, but also play for the sake of play is also important. We're not looking at play for any, like, I don't have a statistic of, oh, play helps you be, you'll get better test scores. No, it's play. Play helps you be human. Play is also critical for other animals. You'll see other animals play also. It's how we build culture. It's how we build community. And I would say that play is especially important in the places where it is often forgotten or often excluded. And that's where Clowns Without Borders tends to work, in communities that have experienced or are experiencing the stress of displacement or of a natural disaster. Because those moments, how most humans respond to stress is by shutting down. It's too much overwhelm, and we kind of tamp it down.
Yeah.
Right? If you think about, if you've ever experienced any kind of crisis, there's probably been a moment where you kind of go into a triage state of, okay, I just have to keep moving, right? And sometimes, I know in my family, I've seen this in a moment where it's like a death has just happened or a crisis has just happened, and instead of having that, like, oh, we're having an emotional moment, it's immediately like, okay, here's the next step that has to happen, right? And sometimes we compartmentalize, and that is also an essential piece of being human, of protecting ourselves. Adults have a lifetime of experience of processing and regulating and experiencing their emotions, so they kind of know how to come out of it. And kids don't. And studies show that the longer kids stay in that kind of depressive or crisis state, the harder it is for them to come out of it, and the greater the impacts of post-traumatic stress disorder. And often what happens is, I know that if my kid is having a hard day, often I'm able to then sort of, like, pull her out of it. That becomes a lot harder when I am also having a hard day. And so if you think about, again, a refugee camp, a place where there is prolonged stress, prolonged resource scarcity, and also often a fair amount of monotony, it's hard for parents to be that play instigator. And so that's really where the clowns come in. And it's not that Clowns Without Borders are these heroes and we come in and, oh my gosh, we start playing, and then the kids start playing, and then poof, their stress disappears. They just start expressing their emotions again. No, 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 no. Kids know how to play. And what Clowns Without Borders is doing is just cracking open the door. And so one of the things that we see over and over again is kids' resilience. It's one of the reasons we say resilience through laughter. And resilience is this kind of bounciness, right? The ability to bounce back. And I think one of the best examples of that comes from the beaches of Lesbos, Greece, which was in 2015, 2016, and 2017 is when we were there the most as a response to the Syrian refugee crisis. And Clowns Without Borders was performing on the beaches, and often there as some rubber rafts were arriving. And if you remember, these rafts were incredibly crowded. Often families spent their entire life savings to get passage, and then the journey itself claimed thousands of lives. People arrived often wet, scared, hungry, and went through emergency services, getting warm, getting food, starting the processing, and then sometimes Clowns Without Borders would be there. And I think the best example I have of resilience through laughter is when a group of clowns, Sabine Choucair, Luz Gagiola, and Clay Mazing, were playing on the beaches with kids and using the rubber rafts as trampolines. And we have these pictures of these kids whose faces are lit up, right? Because these are these little kids and these three big adults bouncing them and bouncing them and bouncing them. And it's like you can see the kids just laughing. And if you look closely, you also see that these children are still wet from the journey. And so they're in that moment. And that's really where Clowns Without Borders exists, is in this place that in what may still be one of the most terrible of this child's life, there was also laughter. And hopefully there is laughter every day. And I think that for me is really the core of laughter as a human right. It's not, oh, here's this special thing you get on your birthday, or when everything else is okay, then you can laugh, then you can play. It's every day, multiple times, through the good, through the hard. So Clowns Without Borders exists in a few different ways. The sneakiness, the Without Borders sneakiness. So the original idea for Clowns Without Borders was in Spain and was formed in Spain by Tortel Poltrona. And Tortel invited other international artists to work with him. And one of those in the early years was Moshe Cohen, who is based in the US. And at one point, Moshe said, hey, Tortel, may I use the name Clowns Without Borders to continue this work in Guatemala? And Tortel said yes. And that is sort of the start of multiple chapters of Clowns Without Borders. So right now there are 15 different Clowns Without Borders worldwide. We are all joined by Clowns Without Borders International. So we share a code of ethics. We share a lot of our practices, and we collaborate on different programs as well. When I speak about Clowns Without Borders and kind of our programs and my experiences, I'm often talking about Clowns Without Borders USA. And I know that there's a little, there's an inherent joke in there, Clowns Without Borders USA. Yeah. But we all work in collaboration is the big piece.
Well, maybe you could discuss a project, because I have this image of my mind. It's like, Mission Impossible, where, Ethan Hawke gets the dossier and then he's got to choose the impossible mission team to go rescue something there. So, start to finish, who initiates identifies that there's a need for a project, and, how do you fill that project with qualified people?
My gosh, I wish someone handed me a dossier and then with a plane ticket. That would, then I would probably be without a job. So who initiates depends. And often, and I think when our programs work the best, our partners initiate. So again, and that's this piece about clowns being responsive and this place of being invited. Because while I have seen, and Clowns Without Borders over the years has seen, how incredible laughter can be for a community, it's also not always appropriate. And it's also not my place to say, oh, what you need are clowns. If you think back to the very beginning, the children in the refugee camp said, we miss laughter. But a lot of times it's this balancing act and this push and pull of, is this the right time? I don't know if you've ever had the experience of either having a bad day or having experienced a loss and someone trying to make you laugh.
Oh, yes, that's
Oh,
yeah.
and it's terrible. And the piece about the right to laughter and the right to to play is everyone also has the right to all of their emotions. And
Mm,
it's one of the pieces that is so wonderful to see about clowning is clowns take you on a full roller coaster of emotions. Clowns play the highs, but often also the low lows.
mm,
And clowns get stuck and get mad and get frustrated and
mm,
get back up and fall down again. And sometimes, a lot of times, the audience catches us on those really high joyful moments.
mhm,
But for the audience, watching a clown who's frustrated can also be very satisfying because sometimes that's also the place of the most where there's a lot to relate to.
yeah.
A lot of times we play with being stuck, and actually during 2020, Moshe, who founded Clowns Without Borders USA, led a lot of workshops on Zoom where one of the pieces that we would play was being stuck. And there was so much resonance there
Mm,
as we were in lockdown, and it opened up this opportunity to play with that, to experience and play with the frustration and sometimes the absurdity of being stuck. And moments like that often make their way into performances for Clowns Without Borders.
mm,
But the life cycle of a tour is often starts with kind of slow trust building
mm,
and going back. And we have many partners who we've worked with multiple times, and unfortunately so much displacement is protracted displacement, which means there's
yeah.
displacement that's existed for over 5 years, often more than 10 years. This March I was performing for communities in Iraqi Kurdistan where communities had been displaced for over 30 years, so that now
Mm,
displacement is multi-generational. And the hard reality of that, and that so much displacement in the world is this long-term displacement, is that Clowns Without Borders often returns to places, and we have many partners who we've worked with multiple times. But at the very beginning, the sort of seed for should we start happens with conversations between NGOs and or community leaders.
mm,
And really this question of, would a Clowns Without Borders engagement be appropriate? Is this
mm,
wanted? And from there, it's a little bit of a juggling. It's hard to say which happens first. But we start to refine this question of what's the goal, what's the purpose. And our mission is a moment of laughter, a moment of awe. So that can be the goal. The goal
mm,
can be performances for children living in Tongagara refugee camp in Zimbabwe to offer a moment of laughter. And that can be the goal, as big or as small as that profound moment of a moment. And from there, it takes either, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, sometimes years,
mhm,
this refining process of looking at dates and logistics and budgets, which I'll just fast forward through. So like here we are. Then is when I get to put out a call to the artists. So Clowns Without Borders has a network of artists we work with, mostly in the United States, but not exclusively. And we put out a call based on what we know the program needs. So in some places we know, wow, we really need artists who have a strong background in street performing, because when we've performed along the Balkan route, we're performing in refugee camps or in situations that are more like street theater. Sometimes we know, oh, for this tour, these communities are really grounded in folk tales and storytelling. We really want clowns who have who have a background and are going to be really excited about really building a story-based show. We also look at where are the artists from, and with the goal of every tour having a cast that includes at least one, usually up to half of the team of artists who are from either the community or the country of origin for our audience.
Mm.
So that's a little bit of the alchemy of how we cast. Once the tour is cast, boom, amazing. We then start the process of building the team. And a lot of times the teams are small, usually four to five people, and often of people who've never worked together before.
Mhm.
And so we spend a fair amount of time before they meet in person talking about how do we work, really understanding that unlike maybe doing a performance at a theater where you go home at the end of the night, the team is together for the full time of the tour, often 3 weeks. And so it's important to talk about identity, work style, power dynamics within the team, decision making really early on. And so that's where we start, and also talking about the context of where we're going and who we're performing for. There's always a moment where we shift from the kind of abstract to the who's bringing what, talking about the show. Okay, you've got juggling clubs. I'm bringing a banjo. Oh, you have a banjo. Do we want to? When the artists arrive, we usually spend about 2 days rehearsing and also working with a local partner to learn more about the context, to learn more about the community we're performing for, or the situations that they've experienced. And then we dive in. A typical day involves 2 to 3 performances. Sometimes that's at the same location. Some refugee camps are very large, as in 200,000 people. We can spend a tour there and not reach everyone, performing 3 shows a day, not reaching everyone. And some tours, the artists perform, drive for 4 hours, perform again, drive, perform, drive, perform. It really depends.
Can I just take a second? I just want to focus on the fact that you could be going somewhere with 200,000 displaced people in one location. That's a lot.
Yes. So that specifically is Kakuma Refugee Camp, which is in Kenya. It's either the oldest or the second oldest refugee camp, continuously running refugee camp. And I think it's one of those places where when we think about displacement, when we think about refugees, and even the idea refugee camp, there's, I think, this ideal of it being a temporary solution.
Yeah.
And what's really hard to see is that it's not, right? That it's become a permanent solution. And a lot of times, I think when Clowns Without Borders started in 1993, many people, those camps that existed then, these tent camps, are no longer there. People have been resettled, and what that looks like depends, but those physical structures of the camps are not there anymore. And it's one of the great inequities of displacement is that it continues. And so there are people who, in 1993, we arrived at some of these camps as refugees and who now have had families. There are hundreds of thousands of people who are born into displacement, who are born into refugee camps and will live their full lives there. And so that's this place. And I think one of the places that I struggle with the most with Clowns Without Borders is this balance of how to tell this story. On one hand, that a moment of laughter can be profound, and also, of course, it's not enough. And so
Yeah.
we're also always looking at what are ways to have a lasting impact. What are ways, how do we start to shift our consciousness? Because when a refugee camp is built in an isolated area and kind of becomes like, oh, we'll put people here, and often they become forgotten about. And
Yeah.
that is this piece that I hear again and again, and these stories that the artists bring back is that moment of being seen, of being recognized. In 2018, I was performing with Clowns Without Borders in northern Myanmar on the border with China, and we were in a displaced persons camp, so a camp for people from within Myanmar who were displaced. And a father said to us at the end, thank you so much for coming, and thank you for recognizing that we are displaced, and that, my child doesn't remember living somewhere else, but I know that this is not my hometown. And I think about that so much because this question of where are you from is so foundational,
Yeah.
and so important for people to be able to have an answer and to have an ownership. I don't have a pretty, like, here we go, back to laughter, sign up
Yeah.
for our 6-day laughing challenge course. That is also the role of clowns, is sitting in discomfort
Yeah.
at times, sitting in the unknown.
I'm so grateful to have you here, Naomi.
Yeah.
I can't express just the feeling
Mm.
of depth and just love that's coming from you, and how important all of this is. And the next question is, we've kind of segued into it. How does Clowns Without Borders contribute to peace?
My hope is that Clowns Without Borders contributes to peace in two ways. The first is that for audiences who see our performances, who are in a refugee camp, a conflict zone, or have experienced a crisis, that, in some ways what Clowns Without Borders is showing, and this is from an audience member, said, oh, this is a different type of international relations.
Yeah.
And the artists of Clowns Without Borders, wherever we arrive, we have something that our audiences don't, is that we have a ticket home, we have visas, we have a certain amount of stability, and it is our job and our privilege to create a space of play, to create a place of equality, and that contributes to peace by this opportunity of creating an experience where, without resource scarcity, laughter is abundant, it is renewable, and in all of these moments when people are, experiencing stress or experiencing crisis, naturally there's this question of scarcity of resources, and that creates conflict, and that creates tension, and Clowns Without Borders, we contribute to peace by offering something that is renewable, that is abundant. And I think, we also had an audience member say, the show gives us a shared experience of laughter. It's a shared experience other than the displacement we've gone through. And it's so important. I think it's something maybe many of us experienced for the first time in COVID, of to have community interactions that are without stress. Just that moment of, if you're on the bus and there's a little kid who's delighted because they see a red car, and oh, everyone smiles for a moment.
Yeah.
And those are so important. Those tiny interactions are important, is what keeps us peaceful. I think about in Mexico, we were doing a tour for both for migrants, but also for host communities. And more and more, when we do performances, especially in places where the displaced community isn't necessarily separate, but we're thinking about, okay, communities living together. There can be a lot of tension, again, because of resource scarcity, because in a place where
Yeah.
maybe there weren't enough jobs, enough housing, enough food before there were migrants, there, I think unfortunately is a really natural step towards fear, xenophobia, and conflict when all of a sudden there's a new group of people who are also wanting those same basic needs. And so we're doing more and more tours that work to address that. And again, the performance is a place that everyone can share. It can be that place where there is enough. And we had a beautiful experience in Mexico of someone standing up from the audience and saying, we are all Americans.
Mm.
And we were a group of performers from Brazil, Mexico, and the United States, audience members from South, Central, and North America.
Mhm.
And so I think that's the place of building peace for our first audience of who we perform for. And where I hope we are building peace and contributing towards peace is through moments like this, of being on this podcast, of our advocacy and the work that we're doing in our newsletter, on our social media, of sharing these stories, and in these really small ways, offering people a different way to think about displacement, a different way to think
Yeah.
about laughter. There's no hierarchy of need when it comes to the right to feeling, right? And
Mm.
so when we limit ourselves to thinking about aid as material goods, we completely ignore the whole realm of human experience that is not material.
Mm.
And I hope by doing that, by having this moment of questioning, oh wait, have I ever felt better after laughing? Or,
Mm.
oh, do I have a great memory of laughing? And having that moment for ourselves, we can then start to think about, oh yeah, everyone should have.
Wow.
Oh, so
Okay.
profound. Go ahead, Jim Bob.
Yeah. Okay. So I had a question. What are the needs of Clowns Without Borders? What would you like
Mhm.
people hearing? What would you like them to do? I mean, I'm figuring you don't want them to send in $10 a month so you can buy pies and size 54 shoes or seltzer bottles. But okay.
But if you want to send in $10 a month, what you're doing with that $10 is that's essentially the admissions ticket for someone else, usually a child who is in the midst of displacement, to see a clown show. So that's one way, right? That's like the easiest. I don't
Yeah.
know if I know you listeners well enough to be like, just send me $10 a month. It's great. Like we're gonna put on a great show. But what I would love you to do, and you can do this on the Clowns Without Borders website, or I'll send you a link. You guys get to be in charge of that piece. Is we've just created a Laughing Matters toolkit, and it includes a 6-day laughter challenge. And so I would love you to commit to 6 days of thinking about why laughing matters. And
Mm.
we, in our booklet, we have a bit about the health benefits of laughter, but also this question and this moment of reflecting for yourself of, how is laughing important in my own life?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, like, I can rattle off the, like, oh, it will lower your blood pressure. Oh, laughing matters. Like, but like, okay, you can read that also. Really, what I want is this question and this moment, time with you, for you to think about, why does laughing matter in my life? Because that, I think, is the context that's needed for when a mother says, this is the first time I've seen my child laugh in weeks. And to have that context of, what does it mean to go weeks without laughter? So that's what I would love you to do. And I also want you to be somebody who is emotionally generous. That's a way I think we can all be a little bit more like clowns, is to have that moment of, if something makes you want to smile, smile. Have that moment. Take the extra half second to have eye contact. The piece of being seen. And again, the COVID-19 pandemic was such a reckoning
Mm.
of people who are often unseen in our community. Take that moment. If you're at the post
Yeah.
office, like, don't be grumpy about how long the line was. Like, take that moment of, like, to say
Yeah.
hello, how are you? And that in some ways has nothing to do with Clowns Without Borders, but does have to do with this core of seeing each other.
Well put. Well
Ah,
put. Because
yeah.
there are people who are disconnected, isolated in every community. We can be kind to them. One of my favorite questions for people we interview is, what difference does this matter on Thursday?
Yes.
Being able to laugh, being able to give someone an identity, okay, to hear them. Yeah, that's really important on Thursday.
How can people contact you?
You can find us, you can join along by first at our website, which is www.clownswithoutborders.org. We're also on Facebook, again, Clowns Without Borders,
Mhm.
and Instagram, same thing, Clowns Without Borders, and YouTube. On YouTube, we're Clowns Without Borders USA. I would love if you want to join our community and really know more about us. One of the ways to do that is by joining our newsletter. We send about a weekly update telling you about why laughing matters, sharing stories from our programs, and we'll also give you that 6-day laughter challenge and the booklet about why laughing matters. Spoiler alert, it's not a like, I give you the answers. It's more like you think for yourself about why laughing matters. I'll get you started, but why laughing matters to you might be really similar to why laughing matters to me, but I'm also sure that there are differences. If you do want to join the Joy Makers, which is our community of monthly donors, that is the backbone of Clowns Without Borders and how we're able to plan and organize our performance tours. And that again is at our website, clownswithoutborders.org. And you'll see there's a big donate button. You can also type in directly clownswithoutborders.org/donate.
Okay. Thank you. That was perfect. Take a breath.
And, so I want to congratulate Clowns. Next year will be your 30th year. And there must have been something going around in the late 80s, because in 1987, that's when the predecessor to AATH was formed. So we're in our 35th year. And I think the Venn diagrams of AATH and Clowns Without Borders kind of overlap, because we have a number of people who are clowns, medical clowns, children in hospitals are performing there. And then we have quite a few people who are in laughter yoga, just giving the gift of laughter to people there. I just love how sometimes the universe brings different organizations together and to meet a common need, and it's kind of wild.
Right, and it's so important. And I think the big piece of Clowns Without Borders International, especially, is this idea of how do we work in collaboration and not in competition.
Mm.
And this place of, again, laughter is not a finite resource.
Yep.
It is so exciting and this to have multiple organizations, multiple artists working towards this shared goal of increasing laughter. And I know that part of this question of how does Clowns Without Borders select artists, we are often looking towards the hospital clown organizations, because doing the work of clowning in a hospital or in a refugee camp, it's not just the skills of being an awesome performer. There's more. There's this piece, I think, this true either humility or responsiveness, which is this willingness to be asking, what does the audience want? And understanding that, the experience we're trying to create for our audience is a moment of agency, of true agency for people who very rarely have agency, especially kids. And so when an audience member or a child says, no, I don't want this, the most important thing we can do is listen and honor that. And that's such a different framework than thinking, I've got to make 10 people laugh today, right? Like,
Yeah.
no. It's, I'm going to listen. And a lot of people meet the clowns and do want to play and do want to laugh. And sometimes people meet the clown and say, no, thank you. And sometimes people meet us and want to share their stories. And, sometimes artists will get back and being like, well, I don't know what this person was saying, but she like sat and was speaking to me and I listened. That is also what we do. So often we will lead workshops for professional artists. And if we're in a place where artists don't have noses, we provide them. So our friends at Red Nose Factories, often they donate noses to us. It's also sometimes people make their own noses. There is, of course, we don't have to get into the to nose or not to nose
Right.
question.
Right.
A lot of times for Clowns Without Borders tours, we do wear red noses. And I think of Becca the juggler, who says, my nose is a beacon for play. And that's such, to me, a beautiful reason to wear a red nose.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
That's absolutely lovely. Can we talk briefly about clowning and catastrophe just a little bit more?
I know that there are moments where I see the news and I have these moments of disconnecting, right? Or feeling like, oh, it's too much, or there's too much bad news. And there's this real, I would say, empathy deficit, right? Reading a number like 100 million forcibly displaced people, it's overwhelming. There's no way to connect with that. It's just sort of like, oh, it's big, it's scary, what can I do? And so this place of Clowns Without Borders and thinking of catastrophe and clowning is trying to tease apart those giant numbers into individuals. The thing that I want more than anything is to create empathy. It's not these people who are so different than me. It's, oh no, these people who are so similar to me, who are sharing experiences of wondering, oh, what am I going to do today? Oh, is my kid okay? What's for dinner? Did I remember to do that thing I was supposed to do? And I think often what happens in catastrophe is, again, reducing the human experience to material goods or to material needs. And it is so important to meet those material needs, right? It is like food, safety, housing, medicine, water are all essential. And it's a little more, I think, uncomfortable, but also important to think about the non-material needs as well. One of the, again, from the beaches of Lesbos, and this is a story that Molly Rose shared with me, is the clowns were performing. They're doing a show at the port. This group, largely of men, and there was a man in a pink t-shirt or a pink sweatshirt who started kind of chatting in Arabic, kind of telling jokes, and people are laughing at him, and the clowns are doing their thing, and he's doing his thing, and so the clowns invited him on stage, and Sabine Choucair, who also runs the organization Clown Me In, and she's Lebanese, she speaks Arabic, she started chatting with him, kind of like inviting him on stage, a little joking, like, oh, you're so funny, you should be on the show with us. And he says, well, yeah, also, I almost died last night, and I was almost tossed into the sea crossing the boats, and before that, my my father died, and I was there for that, and I deserve to laugh. And it's this story that, I can feel as I'm telling it. Neither of you are laughing. If you're listening, I don't know if you're laughing, but he's telling this story, and everyone is laughing, and everyone is celebrating this piece.
Mm.
And so that's why clowning in catastrophe, right? Like, that's this place of, I think the worst thing we can do as somebody who is an outsider to a catastrophe is assume that there isn't space for humor or love or a game. Because as soon as we have our experience of, this is overwhelming, this is scary, I don't know how to process this, shut the computer, or we can't play. As soon as we do that, we cut off the opportunity for play.
Yeah.
And so again, I think the clowning in these moments of catastrophe is because the clown is the catalyst for this play and this catharsis that the community already knows how to do. And the clowns spend years training, but ultimately our show is successful when at the end kids turn away from us and towards each other and start playing.
Yeah.
I believe that probably the person each child wants to think is funniest is their own parent. And so our job is, again, to crack open that door, is to put that little spark. And we train for years to fall over, and we spend all this time fundraising and preparing to get there, all for that reminder that a game of peekaboo is enough and is exactly what's wanted.
Yeah. There are humor scientists, neurologists, historians, and whatnot that think that laughter developed as a sign to show that things were safe. And that's why you see people after the ride on the roller coaster where they're, scared, they come off the roller coaster and they're laughing like crazy because they survived it.
Mm-hmm.
So laughter and survival are interrelated.
Wow. This has been so amazing. Naomi, can you give do you want people to contact you via email, or would you rather they go to the website? How would you like people to be in touch?
The website is the way to get in touch. We also have some volunteer opportunities posted. And if when you're on the website, and you're like, what? I want more. I really want more. Then you'll also see, you can email info, INFO, at clownswithoutborders.org. And then we'll be able to answer, hopefully, any other questions.
Wonderful.
All right.
And there's a quote on Clowns Without Borders International that I just love. And it's, everyone laughs in the same language. And I think that's one of the most important things to understand as we sit on Zoom and try and help each other through Zoom and get in really global. The pandemic made us really global. And that right there is the most profound statement, is that everybody laughs in the same language.
And it's funny because it's like, and again, the laughing challenge, we really dig into this of like, why do we laugh? When do we laugh? There's the nervous laughter, joyful laughter, but this place of, we can laugh for different reasons. We can, our laughter can sound different, but there is this immediate connection of, oh, I get it, we're laughing. And sometimes, they say like laughter is contagious. And often what happens at shows for Clowns Without Borders is a kid will laugh and then someone else will laugh because of that, right? If you ever think about spending time with kids, it's like a kid will laugh at something and that kind of makes you want to laugh.
Yeah.
And for me, again, whether or not someone is laughing because they think that what one of the clowns did was so funny, or they're laughing because the grandma over there is laughing like whatever it is, it matters. And just to be that catalyst.
Well, I want to thank you for your time, Naomi.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
So yeah, what a pleasure. And yeah, just an honor to have you here. And your wisdom and your words have been profound and incredible and made me tear up and made me laugh and made me feel so much love. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's, that space of, am I laughing? Am I crying? Oh, I feel a little sad. I'm a little uncomfortable, but I want more is exactly what we do.
Perfect.
Oh, excellent.
And this place, I love what you both are doing in this question of why laughing matters, why humor matters, and what is it? What is it to be human? And those questions of the intangibles.
Yes. So let's keep going and keep
you.
growing and keep sharing. And I hope we stay in touch. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you again.
This has been episode 88 with Naomi Shafer, the executive director of Clowns Without Borders. Thanks from Jim Bob Williams and Katie B. Thank you so much. This has been Laughbox, brought to you by the Association of Applied and Therapeutic Humor. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Laughbox is a production of the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. Visit us online at www.aath.org. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Music by Gary Rubio. For more information, www.garyrubiomusic.com.
And we'll see you next time.